keeping jobs. This one client that I'm thinking about, anytime she'd get some feedback, she'd react with rage. How dare they talk to me in this particular manner? Give me this type of feedback. I remember one time she wound up getting a raise, and she was really angry that she got the raise because she figured it should have been more. Saw that as kind of as a slight, and I'm thinking, well, maybe a way of looking at this, we're working in a good direction here. You're getting a raise, so it's a good thing. These are also clients which are much more likely to develop PTSD types of reactions. They're very thin-skinned individuals. In our culture, there's some individuals that are very tough and kind of robust. You give them feedback, it doesn't seem to affect them in any way. Not these types of clients. So what they wind up doing is they wind up creating this circle of safety around themselves, such as they may wind up staying home, looking after the home, and not wind up getting a job, as an example. So they have profound feelings of inadequacy. They don't want disapproval from you. And they use a fantasy defense. If only I could find that perfect mate. And so what they do is they have this vision of what the ideal spouse is. The bar is so high, nobody could possibly attain it. Therefore, they never have to risk anything. So this is partly what they do. And they are at risk of developing social phobia. Milan suggests that there's really two main areas. They find interpersonal interactions aversive. In fact, you could even add another descriptor on there. These are very submissive types of individuals. These are the types of individuals that once that you gain their trust, they're very quote-unquote nice people, but they just tend not to risk a lot. In terms of self-image being alienated, what this means is they don't see themselves in glowing positive terms. Well, we're all familiar with Charlie Brown. As I was thinking of media examples, Charlie Brown is a depressive type of individual in some ways. He's somber, pessimistic, everything goes wrong. He finally gets himself a Christmas tree that can't even hold a bulb. So it's just a nightmare for him. So these are individuals that are fatalistic. They feel guilty. They have no value, impotent as people, and believe that they are worthy of criticism and contempt. And as a result, they may wind up taking a lot of it. The depressive scale, or the depressive concept, is something which doesn't have a lot of validity. There's not a whole lot of studies at this point in time sort of backing it up as a scale. Time will tell. I believe that in the DSM-5, you'll find this as an official PD category. In fact, I would imagine it's going to show up as a cluster C personality disorder based upon what we see here. And the reason that I say this is because we have a pre-existing category for major depressive disorder. We've got one for the dysthymia, but we know people in our culture that have long-standing depression. And that's why I think there may be some validity to this. So these are individuals that are passive, gloomy, they're hard to please, they always feel down, it's got this defeatist type of attitude. They seem not to get angry, difficulty expressing it. Whenever you're assessing somebody that you think might have this, you really have to take a look at if there's some sort of comorbid condition, such as major depression or dysthymia. So with major depression, this is what they refer to this as clinical depression. It tends to be very intense. Person could be suicidal. Dysthymia is more of a long-standing depression, at least 2 years. The person's down, but they're not really down. In this case, we're looking at way of being, which would be at least 5 years, being in this depressed type of pattern. According to Milan, we got two basic areas. Cognitively, they're pessimistic. They've got this negative spin on everything. And they are sad in terms of their mood or their temperament, melancholic. Ever watch that movie, What About Bob? Now, Bill Murray plays a really good character in this case of a dependent personality. Dependent types are submissive, helpless. They view themselves as incompetent. They can't do things for themselves. Get family members to fill out all their papers. There's an element of irresponsibility, but not to the degree of an antisocial, of course. They see themselves as weak and fragile. So in other words, they're in this world, which is a dangerous place, and they can't take care of themselves. So they need somebody else to take care of them. So how do you think something like this then plays out in relationships? It would make a lot of sense now, wouldn't it? If you're a very submissive individual, you see yourself as incompetent, you're going to glom onto really anything that comes along that purportedly suggests that I will take care of you. This sets the stage for tremendous abuse in individuals, and it's something you need to be aware of with clients. And when an individual is abusive with them, they tend to deny. They'll tend to dismiss it. I don't know how many of you have watched All in the Family. Have you ever seen All in the Family? If you ever get an opportunity to watch, it's an old sitcom from the 70s, and they got reruns. It's interesting because they talk a lot about socio-political issues in the show. It shows up. And Archie Bunker, played by Carroll O'Connor, he's this guy that is very, very chauvinistic, discriminating, a prejudiced type of individual. And he has this spouse, Edith, who seems to be the exact opposite of him. And what I'm saying in this case is Edith in that show comes across as very dependent on Archie. So submissive, acquiescent, meaning just agreeing with everything. Dependent types worry about being left alone in the world. And they also fear being rejected by others. The wild thing about dependent types is they're very clingy. Now, I don't know if you've ever had a relationship like that where somebody wanted to be with you so much it was actually uncomfortable. You ever experienced something like that? It's like, get away from me. In other words, the very thing that the person wants is the thing. They set up a situation where they can't have it. This is what you perpetually find with individuals with personality disorders. So they're insecure, they tend to blame themselves, and you frequently find when these individuals begin to exhibit clinical problems, it will be depression and anxiety is really the main things. According to Milan, the two main things you see, interpersonally, they are submissive, but technically speaking, avoidants are even more submissive than they are, and they see themselves inept, even though that may not be the case. Have any of you either read the book or watched the movie A Streetcar Named Desire? Yeah, if you've checked it out, there's one character in here, Blanche Dubois, played by Vivien Leigh, and it's a classic old movie. Maybe we may be checking that one out in class. Histrionic personalities, they're dramatic, seductive, and shallow. These are the types of individuals, when you interact with them, you feel flirted with, particularly if you're of the opposite sex. According to one author, histrionic personalities are constantly psychologically mating with other people. Histrionic personalities at the extreme are very attention-seeking, and they do this in a variety of ways. The types of clothes that they wear, how they wind up keeping their hair, all these things, the vehicles that they drive, the shoes they wear. It's usually very, very colorful and loud in presentation. And they can be quite exhibitionistic. The interesting thing about these personalities is they come across as very sexual, which can be quite misleading. Some studies have indicated that histrionic personalities, even though they come across as very sexual, they're actually impaired sexually. In some ways, it's like a compensatory type of mechanism. They may see themselves as quite attractive and charming, spend a lot of money on clothing, anything for themselves to look good, and generally are very colorful types of persons. And if you think about it in your life, there are people around you who present in exactly that fashion. Another example of a histrionic personality would be Vivien Leigh in Gone with the Wind. So another portrayal of this. I've never watched the movie. I can't seem to make it through it for some reason. But maybe we'll be watching parts of that in class. So they want to be at the center of attention, have these shallow emotions. Whenever you're assessing somebody with this, keep in mind that they may have an extroverted style. So histrionic types are extroverted to the nth degree. Another thing to keep in mind is when you take a basic personality and you put it under a lot of stress, it can look like a personality disorder, even though it may not be. For some reason, we find that people who have substance-related issues are more likely to have histrionic types of personalities. According to Milan, the two main things you see here, interpersonal conduct is attention-seeking. We could add into this, interpersonally, histrionic types are dominant. In terms of their temperament, they are fickle. They tend to change quite easily. They can go from laughing to crying very quickly, then back to laughing again. These types of clients in counseling, I can't work with them. I can't keep up. It's just way too emotional, and we forever are going down these bunny trails and not staying on the issue.